Come join the world of the hipsters, the beatniks, the sickniks. Reach out for frenzied fantasies, debauched dreams, bizarre sensualities.
The white poppy, the cactus, the sacred mushroom, why should they be different? Because they are.
Hallucination generation. The experimenters who try anything, stopping only at the outer edge of nowhere.
This'll smooth out all that fear in you, all that hate.
Do you know the taste of purple? What color is the rainbow of passion? The fragrance of madness.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
This is LSD. Peyote. DMT. STP. Mescaline. Psilocybin. Hashish. And marijuana. That's right. Marijuana is also a psychedelic drug. Because LSD is so much more potent than the others, about 300 times as potent as marijuana, about 50 times as potent as STP, about 130 times as potent as mescaline. And because so little is known about LSD, let's talk about it first. This is the head of a pin, magnified 100 times. What you see now is 200 micrograms of LSD. That's the full dose to send a normal adult on an 8 to 12-hour trip. More than enough to do the same for 2 to 4 teenagers. There are some people who can have an LSD experience with only 25 to 35 micrograms. And we can barely see that with the naked eye. This aspirin tablet, it weighs 5 grams. Now, were it to be made only of LSD, there would be enough LSD for 165,000 people to take a real mind-bending trip. This much LSD would kill 20 people. The lethal dose is 15,000 micrograms. Now that's 1/millionth of an ounce. That's about what a particle of dust weighs.
Hi, I'm Tommy Rowe. By now it must be obvious to you, as it is to me, that LSD is very powerful stuff. And that's just what it is, stuff. It's not good, it's not bad, it's only a chemical, a drug. It's been around for about 20 years, and people have been trying it for about the last 5 or 6 years. There's some people who think that LSD is the greatest gift to mankind since Tutti Frutti ice cream. But there are many others who feel that LSD is bad news to the individual and to the world he lives in. For us to make our decisions, we'll have to listen and understand both sides before we make up our minds. While it would be very difficult to find people to tell you how good for you heroin is, or speed, or barbiturates, it's very easy to find people who just can't wait to tell you how great LSD, peyote, DMT, STP, mescaline, and of course marijuana is.
I don't really dig dropping pills, but you get the wildest highs on acid.
But the only time I think I've been able to understand myself was on an acid trip. Then things were really clear.
Yeah, I taken LSD 42 times, and it hasn't done me any harm.
Why knock it? Some of our country's greatest minds drop acid. They couldn't all be dummies.
But everyone says when you drop some acid, the whole world becomes clear to you, like an open book.
What if you thought of it as a great adventure, a great experience, and you had someone with you for the whole trip?
I don't believe all that dumb stuff about chromosome damage. We would have seen all them deformed babies by now anyway.
That's basically what one side has to say in favor of LSD. Now let's hear what the other side has to say. Then we'll be able to make up our own minds. Let's hear from young people who have had their reasons for being down on LSD. Let's also hear from doctors, psychologists, and other experts who have tried LSD themselves. We've had a great deal of experience with LSD and the people who have taken it.
But the only time I think I've ever been able to understand myself was on an acid trip. Then things were really clear.
As a psychologist, I have to tell you that the understanding you think you have gained just doesn't fit in with the facts. Here are the facts. You've been on a number of trips, and we're both agreed that you're having even more problems with your school, your parents, and even your friends. Perhaps what you think or feel on a trip just doesn't fit in with the straight world which you must return to and must learn to live in. As far as understanding yourself is concerned, the only real understanding you could gain would come from having a bummer and then analyzing it, which would mean you'd have to want to try to have bummers and then attempt to understand them the way that psychologists analyze dreams, which, unless you are properly trained, you cannot do by yourself.
I don't really dig dropping pills, but you get the wildest trip on acid.
Yeah, but you can also get the wildest bummers. And you can never really be sure which it's going to be.
But what do you mean?
Nobody ever knows enough about the quality of the acid itself, or their own hidden hang-ups that would make it to be a real trip, or a real bummer.
Yeah, but you've dropped acid.
My third trip was a real bummer, enough to make me not to want to go on a fourth.
What if you were really cool when you did it, the setting's just right? You're not uptight or paranoid about getting busted. What if you think of it as a great adventure, a great experience, and you have someone with you through the whole trip, someone straight who hasn't had any acid?
Well, it could be a great experience and a great adventure if you're really in the right frame of mind. If you're sure about the dose in the cap. If you could be absolutely certain there wouldn't be chromosome damage. If you won't feel guilty about what your parents would think. And if you're sure you couldn't get busted because it is against the law. But how can you be sure that for the 8 to 16 hours the trip will take, that your straight friend, your babysitter, will be reliable, will stay with you and be able to handle any problems you might get into and not have a contact trip recurrence of his own just from watching you on yours? Lots of luck.
Why knock it? Some of our country's greatest minds drop acid. They couldn't all be dummies.
Who, for example? Who's one of these great minds?
You don't understand. I keep explaining it, but you don't understand. LSD, or mescaline even, if you just let it happen, wow, you find you can really love your fellow man. Even when you come down, you can really love your fellow man.
No, I don't agree with you. I mean, what kind of a person are you if you can only love your fellow man if you've taken drugs?
But LSD and mescaline open your mind, your feelings. They make you feel you can just about love everybody.
But I always hear that, Laurie. I mean, I think kids that take a lot of acid must have some really big hang-ups. How can they be capable of loving anyone?
Gee, Laurie, it's easy to say you love everybody, but it's very hard to find just one person to love.
Who says you can't love one person when you're on acid? What is there to stop you?
I say you can't. I mean, it takes over 10 hours for an LSD trip, right?
Right.
So the kids that are involved in LSD don't have time for anything but themselves. They don't have time for anybody, whether it be just one person or everyone in their lives.
You guys are just not with it. You belong back in the Dark Ages with the cavemen. How do you expect to get on in this world if you don't keep up with what's going on?
Know what's wrong with the whole world. But everyone says when you drop some acid, the whole world becomes clear to you, like an open book.
I've got news for you. It would take more than LSD for me to understand what's wrong with the whole world, or even our local politics. Honey, you may think that you know things when you're up, but you can't really know any more than you already knew before you took the LSD.
You may have feelings with LSD about what you know, feelings you've never felt before. But you could never know what you haven't learned yet.
Evelyn, I've been trying to tell you something, but you never give me a chance.
I'm listening. Why don't you tell me what you're going to say?
I've been thinking we should try some acid. I hear it's a real cool trip.
Sure, and so is cocaine. But where are we going to find that kind of money? Besides, if anyone finds out, we'll be in a lot of trouble. Man, like cocaine is a hard drug.
I'm talking about acid, dummy. LSD, not cocaine.
Don't tell me about acid. I know too many kids around here that they tell me that they've been on bad trips on LSD. They saw rats, roaches in different sizes, shapes, and colors. It was like a nightmare. That stuff ain't for me. No way.
But Mrs. Andrade, isn't it true that everybody's being uptight about those freaky chromosomes? Isn't it true that most scientists don't agree on chromosome breakage? Besides, does it matter as long as I don't drop any acid while I'm pregnant? If LSD won't kill my chromosomes, the pollution in the air and water will. So what's the difference?
The difference is we're talking about two different things. We know that if we don't take LSD, we won't damage your chromosomes. All scientists know that it's too soon to know exactly what the damage will be, especially to your children and your children's children.
But water and air pollution are killing us anyway.
Well, that could be, but I don't agree that we should just sit back, swallow some acid, and say, well, man, pollution's going to kill us anyway. This time the whole country is worried about pollution, and things are being done about it all the time. How much are we doing about it if all we do is complain and swallow a drug? Not much better than bad people doing bad things about our water and air. This world's in bad shape, but it's the world that your generation is going to have to run in the next 10 to 30 years. So what kind of preparation is LSD, STP, DMT, peyote, mescaline, or marijuana for what you're going to have to do to straighten it out?
Oh, come on. Mescaline is a natural drug. What could be wrong with something that's natural? It's made out of cactus buttons or mushrooms, or is that peyote? Well, however it's made, it's natural. And you don't get chromosome damage from something that's natural.
Maybe you don't get chromosome damage from mescaline, but are you sure there aren't any other kinds of damages? Like from a mental hang-up?
Oh, Paula, it never hurt the Indians, and they used it for thousands of years in their religious ceremonies.
Sure, I know, but for how many ceremonies a year? How many times a week? And were their minds and bodies fully developed? Or were they still kids, teenagers? And do you know whether they would wander all over the place where they could get hurt? Or just sit there safe and stoned in their teepees? And I'm sure they didn't have to cross 42nd Street and Broadway, or Sunset and Vine when they were stoned.
Well, of course not. You know they led very simple lives.
That's the point. It's much easier for one of us to develop a hang-up on a drug like mescaline. Like, it can become a crutch. There are too many people who just can't hack living in our very big and mixed-up life. You know, a drug doesn't have to do damage to your chromosomes to do damage to you.
Oh, that's an old argument.
Do you need a new one?
Well, you've seen two sides of the LSD psychedelic question. But if you really think of it, there have been about 20 sides to the question. And we've had a chance to hear that many people speak their minds. While it's possible that some things were left out, we did hear from the most important and most strongly felt opinions about LSD. Now it's your turn. Now you have to decide based on what you have learned and what you already knew. One, is it worth the risk to your mind and body to drop acid for kicks or knowledge about yourself and the world you live in? Two, are you sure you're the kind of person who will not get hung up on acid or won't go into other drugs? And three, can any of your personal problems be solved by LSD? And last and not least, will your dropping acid or other drugs do anything for anyone else in the world? Will it do anything for all those people LSD is supposed to make you love? Your fellow man? You decide.
Who am I? I'm the famous Hollywood sex symbol. See my real story in movie star, American style, or LSD, I hate you.
Who am I? I'm that big star who took LSD. See me in movie star American style and see how LSD changed my life.
Who am I? I'm the queen of the movies.
Say hello to Dick for me. Movie star American style.
Or LSD, I hate you.
The hilarious high camp surprise picture of the year that pulls back the curtain on the private lives of Hollywood stars.
Come to our LSD party in movie star American style. Or LSD, I hate you.
Go on a fantastic LSD color trip and see what's really going on in Hollywood.
See what LSD is all about.
This wouldn't have happened if you hadn't beaten Leadfinger at Chemin de Fer.
Movie star American style.
Or LSD, I hate you.
Evening, goblins and ghouls, and welcome to the Friday Night Scream Stream. I'm your host, Spakenstein, and as you can see, I am flying solo this evening. Usually, I'm joined by my beautiful, if I do say so myself, beautiful co-host, Mr. Evan Sink, but he is, he's out in the wilderness this evening. He's hopefully not having like a true horror movie experience right now. I hope that's going well. I hope he's having a good time. But you know, I gotta say, I do some of these solo episodes like every other season of this show, and it's so funny because every time I feel like I'm a radio DJ just over here spinning the hits, all the obscure classic public domain horror movies you've never heard of. But that's what we do here on Friday nights on the Scream Stream. We relax and we enjoy some public domain horror, and I see that we've got our very good friends over in the chat right now, because that's the thing, Evan's not here, but I'm not alone, because I got my wonderful audience here. Well, I see Kathy's in the chat, nice fan in the chat. Glad you are joining us this evening, and hope y'all are doing well. Hope everybody is doing well on this Friday night. I hope that it's I hope it's been a chill Friday for everybody. I hope that you've kind of had time to get into the right mental head space for tonight's episode, because we're kind of going somewhere a little different. I mean, we're pretty much strictly horror movies over here, but we like to kind of skirt the lines, and tonight's movie is an interesting offering, because I think in some sense it is a horror film. It's definitely what could be called a scare film, because tonight we are going to be watching The Weird World of LSD from 1967. And this is, again, it is a early LSD scare film. And if you know anything about American exploitation cinema, you know that the drug scare film is a storied tradition. Of course, going all the way back to the early 30s with the anti-marijuana films, and of course the most famous being Reefer Madness. And yeah, if you're smoking a little doobie, you're probably gonna feel groovy. But when we're talking about LSD, this is much a whole different ball game. And we actually this time last year we were watching the early anti-marijuana scare film Marijuana. I say it that way because the title had an H in it. But we watched that this time last year in honor of 420. But today's Friday episode around this time of year fell on April 19th. And if you didn't know, April 19th commemorates Bicycle Day, which is kind of the commemoration of the very first official acid trip. So if you didn't know, there's a story about why it's called Bicycle Day, but I'm gonna save that. I'm teasing that. If you don't know the story, it's an interesting one, and it goes back to the origins of the creation and all that. So we're gonna get a wide scope, and of course we're gonna be talking about the movie. There's not a lot of information on this film, believe it or not. The IMDb information is very sparse, but I was able to kind of put some stuff together. There's at least one kind of horror film player, I guess, in the world of independent regional horror films. There's a guy who was the producer of this film who had an interesting role to play in some regional horror films. We'll be getting into that, of course, later. Always love whenever I can get a weird, obscure movie that it's like, well, I don't know if it's really a horror film, but always involved in these exploitation films is somebody that at some point has been involved in horror movies. So got an interesting character that we'll be talking about later in the show. But it's we're gonna be really getting into it, and it's get ready to start feeling far out. We're gonna go far out. It's gonna be a trip. This movie, I mean, again, exploitation film. It's you could say that it's really anti-drug, but it's not. It's got some other MO besides trying to scare people from taking LSD. So we'll get into all that tonight. It's a lot of fun. And of course, as always, even though Evan is not here right now, he is still bringing us a delicious cocktail from beyond the grave. Not really beyond the grave. Beyond the veil. But he's bringing us a delicious cocktail in a segment which we call What Were You Drinking? And tonight, Evan brings us a literal cocktail of LSD. And I don't mean lysergic acid dithylamine. I mean lemon Sprite drop, of course. And so Evan, I've already whipped it up. But if you're drinking along at home, or you'd like to make it at home, maybe you've got the ingredients lying around. This is a stiff one. It's 3 ounces of vodka, an ounce and a half of Sprite, half ounce of triple sec, 2 ounces of lime juice, and I have, it was optional, so you could rim the glass in sugar. So as you can see, I did that, and we got a nice, again, I put a little bit of extra Sprite in there. If you know, I mean, I like my drinks a little sweet, and the carbonation also helps too. So, but this one looks good. It's, as you can see, it's a big glass, a lot of vodka. I'm not a huge vodka guy, but this is, again, it's Evan stipulated that I use fresh lemon juice. So this is, I squeezed it with my own hands. And so it's as fresh as we're going to get. But it looks good. Smells good. It's a simple one. Evan's been getting pretty crazy the past couple weeks, but this is a little bit more laid back, which is good because, getting into, we're getting into, far out territory. We need to keep it simple. So this cocktail does that, but I'm very excited. So this is LSD, lemon Sprite drop. Cheers. It's good. I mean, really, it's, I was worried about the vodka because I don't hate it, but I can't say I've had the best experiences with vodka. But you really don't get that. The lemon juice is obviously the forward-leaning thing here, but it's pretty good. It's it's a little tart, but it's just like drinking a lemonade, which again, this time of year, springtime, it's good. And I'm sure I don't know. I've heard something about citrus and maybe some other kind of psychoactive drug. Maybe not acid. Maybe I'm confusing it with something else. But I swear there is something about maybe being able to do something to your trip if you're like, I don't know. Maybe that's something else. I don't know. So maybe somebody out there has the answer to that. I do not. But got a lot of other facts about acid, but didn't research that one. But still, I think this will be a nice counterbalance if it really starts to, if this movie, if it gets to be too much, if we really start to feel like we're tripping, then hopefully maybe that's what it is. Maybe it'll calm your trip down or something. Don't quote me on that. But I think that's what this will do for us tonight. If we're getting a little too far out, let's kick back one of these, and hopefully we won't have a bummer of a time. I haven't heard the word bummer so much than in that little short that we had in our pre-roll there. But you got to be ready for all this lingo. It's coming. Although our film tonight's interesting, because like any good exploitation scare film, it's almost entirely covered in narration. Because tonight's film, which I haven't seen, and I really only just found out about it in the past couple weeks. And then when I realized that we'd have an April 19th Friday episode, I booted one movie off the lineup I had made up for this season. Snuck this one in there because it's like, how could I pass this up? Even I hate Evan not being here, but it's like the day, it's bicycle day. It's just too good. So, this film it's a series of vignettes of people who are under the influence of LSD, right? But it's a narrator he's really trying to put the fear of God into you, which again, that's what you have to love about these exploitation films, is that the way they get away with being scandalous is by having a narrator who's kind of lecturing you and like telling you why all this is bad, but then they're showing you stuff that like any mainstream movie wouldn't be able to get away with if it wasn't, said to have some kind of educational value. That's the thing, these scare films, you know, you got to pass them off as having some kind of educational value. But tonight's film is definitely pure exploitation. And as we get into it, you'll see. I mean, we've got some things that it's like, I don't even think this was shot for this movie. I'm pretty sure this footage was just spliced in here. So, and yeah, Nice Fan, I wish the Monkees were in here too. Although I'll say, if you're a Monkees fan and you wanna kind of LSD trip via the Monkees, go see their movie Head. It used to be on Tubi. I don't know, they might have taken it down recently, but that movie is insane. It's very much like an acid trip of a movie, and it captures the pessimism of the, you know, kind of that time period, which we'll get into tonight. We'll get into kind of the confluence of the counterculture and drug culture, and of course the war on drugs and all that. This stew just kind of had so many things mixed in, and it's kind of crazy. So we get into all of it tonight. It's gonna be fun. This movie will be able to have a lot of fun with it. And you know, just to go ahead and kind of get in, just to give you some establishing information about LSD, the drug, and its creation, and the Bicycle Day story. I'll just go ahead and tell you before we get into the movie. So, like I said earlier, Bicycle Day commemorates the first real trip by the man who discovered LSD, Albert Hofmann. Albert Hofmann was a Swiss chemist, and he was working in Switzerland, and he discovered the, I don't know if you call it a compound, I'm not quite sure what you call it, but he discovered it in 1943. 38. So he discovered it in 38, but he just kind of put it to the side and didn't really like look into it. He discovered it, but didn't like synthesize it or something until 5 years later in 1943. And so 1943, April 19th was, you know, kind of the kind of a first official trip. But on the April 16th, 1943, Albert Hofmann was synthesizing it, and he got some of it. He got some, like, somehow it like got onto his fingers. He absorbed a small amount on his hands of the LSD. And so he kind of experienced some mild effects, and you know, for about 2 hours, right? But it was 3 days later, on April 19th, that he decided to actually willingly take some of it, not accidentally, but actually voluntarily take LSD, ingest LSD. And so, you know, kind of started coming up, and he had his assistant escort him home via bicycle. And of course, started like peaking while he was on his bicycle. So that's where the term Bicycle Day comes from, is Albert Hofmann peaking on LSD as he's biking home, trying to get home. And apparently, like, he just started getting really paranoid and anxious and believed that his next door neighbor was a witch and that he was going crazy and the LSD had poisoned him. And he was kind of, he was definitely kind of like freaked out, as anyone, because nobody had ever tripped before. So he was definitely freaked out. But then, you know, a doctor came and was like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're okay. Your pupils are just really dilated. And so when Hoffman realized that he was okay, he apparently really started to enjoy it. And he was quoted as saying, or he wrote later, "Little by little, I could begin to enjoy the unprecedented colors and plays of shapes that persisted behind my closed eyes. Kaleidoscopic, fantastic images surged in on me, alternating, opening, and then closing themselves in circles and spirals, exploding in the colored fountains, rearranging and hybridizing themselves in constant flux. So obviously he was tripping balls. He was feeling pretty good. And oh, okay. See, nice fan there. There's maybe that's where I was making some kind of connection between LSD and it. But he, you know, obviously he loved it. He absolutely loved it. Well, I don't know. I mean, that description, that's me paraphrasing that description. But that description, I mean, that sounds pretty great, right? I mean, we can't argue with that. But that's the thing, is that it really, you know, he realized, oh my God, this had a wild effect. And, you know, he was doing this for a pharmaceutical company in Switzerland. It was a company named Sandoz, who's still around. And they actually manufactured it as a drug from 1947 to the mid-60s. And it was sold and marketed as a pharmaceutical, and was kind of, you know, trialed by psychiatrists. And, you know, it was, they were trying to see how this drug could be used for good in the kind of first years after its discovery. And so basically for about 20 years, from the 40s to the 60s, it was kind of, you know, it was a very slow kind of exploration of what does this drug do? What's going on? And, but obviously in the 60s is when it exploded. So we'll get into that later tonight. We'll kind of talk about how it went from being this drug that was viewed as something that could be helpful to people into, you know, kind of more of a like scare drug, like, oh my God, this is corrupting our youth. And, you know, the tide turned very fast, and there's a lot of factors as to why that happened. But we'll get into all that tonight. That's the fun of this. But that's a little, you know, just a little really, really, really brief history of kind of the beginnings of LSD. Its discovery and its first use, and kind of how it ended up making its way to the United States just as we were about to experience a cultural revolution. So this movie is a product of that. So again, this movie will say the narration will say some ridiculous things. I can't wait. It's gonna be ridiculous. So yeah, that's the setup. So I think without further ado, go ahead and get into the exciting beginning of the weird world of LSD right now.
We do not profess to know all of the legal or moral aspects to the subject. We are here to present to you a motion picture that we hope will give you a better insight into the strange and terrifying world of LSD. In viewing this motion picture, remember these important points. Under LSD, sights and sounds are many times unreal, movements often uncontrollable. Things that one thinks he does while under the influence of LSD are not necessarily the same things that are actually being performed by that person. His sense of reasoning is altered. Yet to one under LSD, he feels that his timing, judgment, and reasoning are extraordinary and far above that of mere mortals.
Mere mortals cannot feel the powers I feel on LSD.
A question arises. What does one under the influence of LSD hear, see, and do? We are about to take you into the world of the LSD user. A world that to him is real, yet as terrifying and unreal as anything ever imagined. We call his trip of terror to fly a giant bird.
Oh man, he's feeling it. Look at those eyes roll. Oh my God. That's definitely what hallucinations look like. For sure, look at that. He's feeling it. Wait, quit running in circles. I can't catch you. Whoa. Oh, here we go. Oh my God, I'm feeling it, man. Yes, bean dip cartography. Yes, we really need more Beyond the Valley of the Dolls references. You can feel that time, can't you? The swinging 60s. Oh shit! Damn, that's I don't think that was acid. Okay, I'm just gonna say right now, you're bleeding out your nose. Just never know what you're getting. Oh, here we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Not the eyes. What? Oh, it's like negative. Okay, I was like, ooh, fish tank action. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Yep, see, here we go. Yep, that's definitely what happens when you're tripping on acid. I think the real question that we all want to know the answer to is, where are the fish in this fish tank? I see bubbles, but I don't see any fish.
Lysergic acid dithalamide, better known as LSD, has hit American youth with the awesome power of a medieval plague.
Oh, shit.
A powerful drug, stronger than marijuana. 1 ounce of this tasteless, odorless drug can dissociate and derange every man, woman, and child in a city of 300,000. Yet LSD can be produced cheaply by a good high school chemistry student. LSD
a good
is a psychedelic
high school
drug.
chemistry student.
That is, it changes the chemistry of the brain cells to produce hallucinations, loss of reality, visual and sense distortion of fantastic dimensions. Colors become sounds. Sounds can be touched. Space becomes fluid, ideas become physical, and an hour becomes eternity.
Hell yeah, it
Under
does.
LSD, veins on your arm become an intense blue mountain range. One's eye can be seen to grow until it fills a room, and the walls close in on it until it is squashed, sending a symphony of colors into a sea of sounds. Before long, the user reaches a transcendent state. He is ecstatic. He is beside himself. He may undergo fantastic visions, paranoid terrors, or schizophrenic horrors. Without proper supervisions, one cannot predict the behavior of the user. One can fall in love with the tree, be convinced that he can fly, become an indestructible god, or he can plunge into hellish psychosis. He may return to reality after 8 to 12 hours, or he may not. In the public clamor against LSD and its weird effects, Congress has reacted. Some states have passed repressive legislation. And with this wave of suppression has come the black market with its agents, the pushers, whose unscrupulous, blatant drive to make a buck leave a trail of disaster among the unsuspecting, the ignorant, and the weak.
Those pushers.
Secretaries who come to the big city do not find life exactly as they had imagined it. Instead, they discover that the big city is long on promises and short on performance. Her days are long, the work often mechanical, the pace frantic. Mary Libby left a small town in Maine to come to the city. Bored, adrift, unable to relate to the mass of humanity in the city, she feels rejected and abandoned. She longs for the stability and significance she had as a child in a small rural town. Perhaps she will find it in LSD.
This is like Ed Wood level storytelling right now. You gotta love this jazz score, though, right? Yeah, I'm just gonna eat some acid while I'm hanging out with my friend in the park. Seems like the perfect place to take acid. Yeah, I don't know about that. That's... Yeah, her sunglasses friend there also
in a strange way, LSD gives her what she wants. She reverts to the pleasant days of her childhood and to the playful pets she used to have.
Oh my God, one cat became 3 cats.
In fact, she passes the line of real and unreal and believes herself to be a cat, as she rejects the human world that had treated her with such cruel indifference.
I'm a cat, I'm a cat, I'm a cat.
LSD may have given her a few hours of escape, but the relationship to cats can hardly be satisfying or fulfilling to a normal person.
I don't know. You should ask some crazy cat people. They might have a different answer for you. I mean, she's just gonna keep stacking them on like they're those cups, just kind of.
We all dream, and in dreams we enter a fantasy world. With LSD, we can consciously order and instantly enter such a fantasy world. Elizabeth Bentley lives in the euphoric world of her dreams, but she demands more.
I'm laying by a pool in the middle of a work week, but I still don't have it all.
She thinks she can intensify those dreams. Soon she enters a world of sensuous, pleasurable, watery sensations.
Watery sensations. God, that's... Ugh. Something tells me this isn't gonna end well. What are you supposed to wait like 45 minutes after taking acid before you go
The
swim?
line between the real and the unreal dissolves. She is launched on a trip that to us appears unreal, but to her becomes a pilgrimage of her deepest yearnings. It is a search for an elusive ideal which had always been close to the surface of her rational moments.
I'd be freaking out. The eyes staring at me. Just another mannequin. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely like set up for a horror movie. I'm just waiting for the killer to come around the corner. Walking around the creepy mannequin factory. Tripping balls. Keep your hands to yourself, okay? This isn't my arm. This is a mannequin arm. What's this doing here? That's a real guy back there. Oh, he's gonna... Oh. Just gonna move past you. Clearly you're on your own trip. Just let you do your thing. Let you vibe out. Oh. Ooh.
For a brief moment, she seems to find her ideal, or the symbol of her dark yearnings, and what to us appears unreal becomes for Elizabeth an intense reality.
You should have just used
But
a real
sooner
mannequin.
or later, she must return to the world of normality.
Yep, this definitely wasn't just an excuse to show this girl swimming around and getting out of the pool. Seems like she had a pretty good trip. Well, that was a, yeah, that was kind of a,
Fear. One ancient
pretty
school
tame
of
vignette.
philosophy held that fear was a motivation of all action. We know that fear and a touch of paranoia exist in all normal people, but under LSD anything can happen and does. Martin Gelber appears as a successful young salesman, but in a strange town, alone and bored, Under pressure of his next appointment, he is drawn into the mysteries of LSD. What emerges is a latent paranoia of the man. Something in him had always been on the run, but it had been held in check by his rational faculties. But once it breaks through, fear dominates his nature and he runs. What is he running from? He doesn't know. Whatever he fears is hidden from him, but it is as real as his own existence. With wild abandon, he runs.
You know they're filming this without permits right now. This guy's just running through the streets of Florida. I'm surprised there's nobody else walking around.
But he finds he cannot escape his pursuer. No man can outrun his fears no more than he can outrun his legs. The end is failure.
His legs.
James Dunlap is an art dealer. He works long hours in a world of abrasive competition.
That was a quick
his
one.
anxieties reveal themselves in part, at least, in his 350 pounds. He returns to a hollow, empty apartment. He is alone and he is lonely. A lover of the beautiful, he has, for the moment at least, shut out the raucous world of sound and fury. But anxiety pushes him to other desires.
I guess if you're an art dealer, maybe acid's kind of helpful in the job, you know? This art. Never seen anything like this, man. You feel that green? Do you hear that cerulean blue? Sad.
Suddenly, his satisfaction girls before a satyr, a feast fit for a Roman emperor.
What is this, hook? He just imagines it and boom, whole feast ready to go. You have to use your imagination, Peter. You gotta believe. Does look good though. God, give me some of that cake for sure. What's that, corn? God, that's a lot of corn. Good spread though. Some pies. He's got some different pies there. I mean, hey, if he's just imagining this on acid, this could be good for him. You know, he's not really eating all his food. He's just imagining he is, then satisfy the craving. God, look at him tearing at that. It does look really good. You can't go from cantaloupe to turkey leg. Oh yeah, there we go.
And yet for such a man, ruled solely by his senses, there can never be an end. There can never be ultimate satisfaction, for there must always be more.
I mean, he's having a pretty good time. The candle's right, Kathy. They are nice touch. See, look
and
at that.
With LSD, the satisfaction is short-lived. Soon he is back where he started with
Not if you take
memories,
LSD
perhaps,
all the time.
but his stomach a bit more empty. Margie Darling and Geraldine Warren were extremely good friends and close comrades. As in most close friendships,
Hi,
each is partly
comrade.
an alter ego of the other.
Can't say that in 1968. Uh-oh.
Under the impact of LSD, these alter egos can become antagonistic. What could have remained an inner struggle now erupts into external action.
Oh,
As each sees in the
what is
other
this, the
some
bar fight from
personification of themselves.
Airplane?
Like Jacob's struggle with the angel, the struggle is essentially an internal one. But here, under
my
LSD,
God.
it has disastrous consequences.
Gosh, it's just... Yeah, definitely not just an excuse to throw in a cat fight. I mean, at least it's not like, what is it, Maniac, where they juxtapose a cat fight with two cats fighting. It's real on the nose. I would have loved to have been in the room with the drummer scoring this. It's going so hard. And that is gonna take us to our first break. So that was the exciting first third of the Weird World of LSD, and so far I'd say, yeah, it's a pretty weird world out there in LSD land. I mean, it is obviously it's just so ridiculous. I mean, the narrator is, you know, kind of espousing some of the what at that time was the mainstream talking points in terms of anti-LSD. But you have to love that outside of that, if you just showed somebody these vignettes, you wouldn't know that it's somebody tripping out on acid. Like, I mean, it's a pretty random, as you can tell, this movie is shaping up to just be a collection of random little vignettes that, you know, obviously they haven't all turned out bad so far. I mean, you know, the woman who fell asleep by the pool, she seemed to, you know, have a pretty good time. The you know, the hungry art dealer, I mean, if anything, I think it might actually do him a favor. You know. And then well, we did see one guy kind of lose it, and two women get into a fight. So I don't know, maybe there's something about this LSD that's just not it's not good. I don't know. It's funny. It's definitely you know, it's moving quick. It's keeping my attention. Right? It's not like you know, say what you will about like Reefer Madness, like, you know, it does have one kind of full, complete storyline, but, you know, it does have the kind of stuffy stodginess of a 30s film. Yeah, Kathy, this, like, definitely, it's not really working so much as, like, arguing, hey, don't take LSD. It's just kind of, you can tell it's just a straight-up exploitation film. It's just kind of more about showing you some scandalous things while talking about this hot topic of LSD. And yeah, in some cases, it's like, hey, it can't be that bad. Which again, last year when we watched Marijuana, for our pre-roll, we watched this cartoon short entitled Curious Alice. If you haven't seen Curious Alice, I mean, that was one that was supposed to be showed in schools, and then they realized that this may make kids want to take drugs, because it's just an animated Alice in Wonderland story with all the characters kind of doing a different drug. And it's not necessarily, you know, saying you shouldn't. It's kind of like, like, oh, how high do you want to be? That's legit a line from that cartoon. It's pretty great. So if you haven't seen Curious Alice, check that out, because that was funded by the government. This film, and to answer your question, Kathy, I don't think that this would have been played in schools, because I really do believe that this is an exploitation film that was probably shown on the drive-in market in grindhouse theaters. I think that and yeah, definitely check out Curious Alice. It's only 10 minutes long, and it's absolutely amazing. But that's the thing about like tonight's film is like, yeah, like tonight's film, the year that it came out in 1967, that was kind of like the year for these drug scare films, these LSD scare films. And a lot of them were these short documentaries that were like, you know, educational films that were shown in classrooms. But this, I'm pretty sure, because of the producers, was definitely just a kind of tried and true pure exploitation film. Because the producers of tonight's film, which the director, just to mention off the bat, Robert Ground, this was his only credit. His only credit on IMDb is just directing this film. But the producers had some other credits. One of the producers, Eli Jackson, had done a couple nudie cuties. I believe they were nudie cuties. The titles looked like nudie cutie titles. Something panties, I don't know. Which, if you don't know about nudie cuties, it was just kind of like, it was before, you know, porn really took off in the United States, and it was when they were trying to figure out how much they could get away with. So you have these really kind of innocent plots where people are just running around nude, nothing sexual. So it seems like Eli Jackson had done a couple of those before he produced tonight's film, and he didn't produce anything after this. There's another producer named G.B. Roberts who, after tonight's film, the year after, produced a film called Fireball Jungle in Florida, which these guys, I'm pretty sure, based in Florida. Tonight's film was made in Florida, I do believe. But Fireball Jungle also had Lon Chaney Jr., which I didn't know Lon Chaney Jr. made an independent movie down in Florida shortly before his death, but he did. That, you know, again, like, it's funny, a lot of people don't really think about Florida being like a hub of like film, but during this time in the 60s, it was kind of a hub of regional filmmaking. And another producer behind tonight's film was kind of in the thick of the regional Florida filmmaking scene at the time, and he's a man named Douglas Hobart. And he's a really interesting guy. He may still be alive, actually. But Doug Hobart kind of was like, I think he's probably pretty like the biggest force behind this film in terms of like experience wise. And a lot of his talents were in the makeup department, which we'll see later in this film. But he as a kid was given a makeup kit on his 10th birthday by an actor, because he was really interested in acting and all that stuff at a young age. He got a makeup kit, and so he always wanted to be in that business, but he ended up enlisting in the Navy during World War II when he was 17. He got permission, but then Japan surrendered and the war was over before he had to leave. So he came back, he worked some odd jobs, and then actually ended up hosting some midnight spook shows under the name Dr. Trabo. and it was Dr. Trabo and his Chamber of Monsters. And if you don't know, Trabo is Hobart backwards, so that's a pretty easy way to come up with your spook show host name. I think Dr. Trabo is a pretty good one. It works. But he he used his talent in special effects, makeup, and acting to have a spook show that toured apparently across. It covered parts of Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, and for about 9 years in the 50s he had his own midnight spook show, which such a like very much in the showman spirit, in the tradition of like a real showman. So he had all these skills, and then in the 60s he got involved with a regional filmmaker in Florida named William Griffey, who we've talked about, I think, when we watched I Eat Your Skin, aka Zombies. I think he helped. He did some like second unit work on that, but he made a few horror films in Florida in the mid 60s, and Doug Hobart was instrumental to the makeup. 2 of those films where he did the makeup and played the monster were Griffey's films Sting of Death, which is, if you may have seen this like movie with a jellyfish monster. It's like a man who you can see his head inside this clear kind of jellyfish kind of cover, and then he's wearing a wetsuit and he's got little spindly things hanging off of him. That was a Doug Hobart makeup job, and Doug Hobart in the makeup playing the monster. And then in Griffey's next film, Death Curse of Tartu, he played the titular Tartu. And he apparently in both cases of those makeups, had moments where he almost like got like injured or hurt, almost suffocated in the jellyfish thing, and his makeup like got tight on his face when he played Tartu because it was hot. They'd film in the Everglades, right? Like this is like really in the like in the heart of Florida, and they're going all around Everglades, locations in Miami, all over the place. But Hobart was instrumental in the effects for those films. And also the later Griffey film Impulse, which stars William Shatner. And so Hobart really had a kind of a hand in crafting makeup and crafting special effects for some of these 60s horror films. So we'll see at this break, we'll see a trailer for Death Curse of Tartu. We'll also see a trailer for another film that Hobart did the makeup for, entitled Scream Baby Scream, from 1969, the year after tonight's film, or 2 years after tonight's film. And you'll see his makeup work. Well, you'll see it in the Death Curse of Tartu trailer, because you'll see Tartu, and that's him in the makeup. And then in the trailer for Scream Baby Scream, I think towards the end, you'll see some of his makeup work. It's distinct, and you'll notice it when we see it in tonight's film later. And he, really, I think he had a talent for this makeup, horror makeup especially, and obviously enjoyed it. But yeah, we're gonna enjoy these trailers for 2 Doug Hobart related films, Death Curse of Tartu and Scream Baby Scream. And then when we come back, we'll get into the exciting middle of the weird world of LSD. So stick around, we'll be right back.
Thunderbird International Pictures presents The Death Curse of Tartu, a legend black with evil and red with the blood of innocent youth. Photographed in the forbidding depths of the Florida Everglades, this is the incredible story of an archaeological excursion planned as an educational adventure and ending as a blood-spattered nightmare of incarnate hallucinations. Cold and slimy creatures without mercy hunt and kill, controlled by the soul of a rotting corpse. They danced over the grave of Tartu, who was restless in his coffin, and made passionate love on his burial mound until...
Julie, what is it?
They faced the terrible reality of the death curse of Tartu. Was it really a killer shark in the swamp waters? Or was it Tartu, who had sworn vengeance on all who disturbed his grave?
If we sit here and wait, it's only a matter of time until Tartu will destroy us all.
Thrilled to the heart-stopping suspense of scenes that spare no detail of horror. See the bloody massacre of terrified youngsters as Tartu the witch doctor returns to wreak vengeance. See the death curse of Tartu, coming soon to this theater.
Scream, baby, scream. What brought them together, these two young artists experimenting with life, in search of excitement? What hideous web of terror threatens to engulf them? They live only for kicks, anything, even the freaked out world of drugs.
What do you say we see what's shaking in the outer limits? Now, it may get a little hairy once in a while, but don't let it flip you out.
Suddenly, they're plunged into a psychedelic nightmare.
His neck's broken.
What terrible forces are at work that will soon bring them face to face with a living hell?
I feel so strange. Like a nightmare that I don't want to think about.
If you go beyond imagination and create an entirely new world, then the one you have left becomes far less real than the one you have found. Even if you have to build that new world yourself.
Rely on the mix of emotion when she walks away. You think you're gonna cry. You can rely in the way that you feel.
Oh, my God.
You, Janet, are a part of that world.
Why me? Why?
We dare you not to scream when you see...
And we are back. So that was the trailers for Death Curse of Tartu and Scream Baby Scream. And yeah, you saw there at the end of that Scream Baby Scream trailer some of Doug Hobart's makeup work. And we will see some very similar looking work from him in the middle of tonight's film, which we're about to get into. But yeah, I mean, and as you can see also there, Scream Baby Scream also has a psychedelic kind of through line to it, which is the thing about movies related to LSD, which we'll get into later in our second break. There was like a very specific period of time where a bunch of scare films were made, but then you also have some films where it was worked into the plot, some much more ridiculous than others. But tonight's film definitely belongs to the scare film brand. But again, as you can tell, those trailers, obviously that's the world of kind of regional horror filmmaking, exploitation filmmakers. It's it's definitely kind of geared toward a young audience, and these are producers trying to make a quick buck. And so, whereas the educational films maybe do have some good intentions, trying to really scare people straight, this film is, and we'll see it especially in the middle part coming up here, that's much more interested in showing you titillating content under the guise of the seemingly educational nature of the presentation. It's very much just kind of, it's just gonna kind of take some liberties with this very loose storyline that they've got going so far to just kind of, you know, titillate you a little bit. So get ready for that. I don't believe we'll have any nudity, which again, I totally forgot to warn everybody last week when we watched Creature that there was explicit content. I don't believe there's any explicit content in tonight's film. Even though it's 1967, they were still, you know, still a little bit, you know, treading some lines. But I don't know. This is, again, this coming from Florida. It's kind of, they had some leeway. They could have done whatever they wanted. But I mean, again, that's, you know, Herschel Gordon Lewis started making his splatter films in Florida around the time that Doug Hobart was working on those Griffey horror films. But then Doug Hobart, I guess, decided to get in on it with tonight's film because he realized, you know, this should be pretty. I don't know who the narrator is, but it could be Doug Hobart because he kind of has like the voice of a spook show host, like this narrator. You know, I could see that being his voice. Who knows? That's the thing. Trying to find any information through the credits on IMDb, you don't get very much. So maybe it's Hobart, but regardless, we're about to get into the exciting middle of the Weird World of LSD. And again, if you're just joining us, this movie is just a series of unrelated vignettes trying to warn you of the dangers of LSD. And so far, mixed bag. You know, I can't say they've done a great job warning us, but we'll see what tricks they have up their sleeve here in the middle. We just got done with a cat fight, I believe, just got broken up. So we'll see what other freakouts are in store for us. So, without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get into the exciting middle of the Weird World of LSD right now. Deal's going down. Digging this music. Really discreet. Real subtle. Act casual.
Originated the story of Narcissus, the story of a beautiful youth who fell in love with his own image. Daisy Green, product of a dozen beauty contests, is an echo of that ancient story. Today, psychiatrists would call her narcissistic or autoerotic. Kept under control, she could enjoy satisfying relationships with other people.
Is narcissistic and autoerotic, are those synonyms? What the? She just pulled scissors on a guy?
But under LSD, it becomes a different matter. In keeping with LSD's reputation for releasing dominant tendencies in a person's psyche, Daisy Green tries to share her self-love with the world.
Yeah, this is definitely what a person on an LSD, you know. Let me just take out my clothes cutting scissors, and these clothes are really, really harsh in my vibe. Nobody else in the bar seems to mind, do they? This must happen all the time. Oh, no.
She glories and wallows in self-glorification. She becomes in her eyes a goddess of love, but the love is of herself. She becomes in reality a writhing exhibitionist to the dismay and bewilderment of her fiancé.
Should we go, or you would think that he would, you know, it's his fiance. Come on, help her out, man. Oh yeah, no, the health department's not gonna have anything to say about this. They've definitely got a license for, you know, striptease. You know, I love the fact that there's no logic here, you know, really. Like, would someone on the LSD really do this? Come on. No, this is just their excuse to show you a striptease. Yeah, the fiance's just chilling. He's just having a good time, right? And so it's okay, guys. Go ahead, get an eyeful, please. Everybody enjoying the show? Yeah, you would think the fiance must be tripping out too. Just love how, like, plot, whatever plot there was, just totally grinds to a halt, right? I'm sure it's not gonna get any better for me. Oh, got those scissors again. Oh, don't put them in your mouth. Let your tongue off. She didn't take acid, she took bath salts. Apparently Cary Grant did that, Kathy. Apparently he brought LSD home to his wife and she was like, no thank you. I think he actually brought it home, but if you didn't know, Cary Grant took it under the supervision of a psychiatrist, loved it, and then tried to get other people to do it, and apparently kind of, you know, it was a weird time in his life. Interesting read if you can find articles and stuff about Cary Grant's experiences with LSD. It's crazy stuff. I think this is a good place to call it here, honey. Let's go home. Yeah. I mean, you'd be surprised what classic Hollywood figures, actors are known to have taken acid. We'll talk about another one, at least one more later. Not two more. What are you shaking your head for, guy? You didn't do shit. Uh-oh. Oh no, it's turning into a roughie. Which, again, we were talking earlier about nudie cuties. That was the next stage, was roughies. Which we got a little bit of nudie cutie, now we're getting a little bit of roughie, which not good. You know what that might be, and I'm late on it. I haven't done it in a long time. It's a yikes. Been a while, and I'm late on it, but I don't want another opportunity, but I'll try to be on top of it. I was like, as that was happening, I'm like, oh, this is awful. Like, I wish there was something I could do. I was forgetting the yikes. That's what, you know, really bad happens here. That's what the yikes is for. Yeah, Kathy, that's seriously, that's the kind of movie we need. Turn to a vigilante. She's like fighting back. She's gonna take more acid.
Repulsion, rejection, suicide. Like ancient Narcissus, she is swallowed up in her own image.
You have now seen a Narcissus complex at work, but only in a very mild stage.
We got a different narrator?
Here we see a man admiring himself in the mirror. The more he gazes, the more beauty he finds in himself and the mirror. He is in love with his own masculinity. The mirror reflects exactly what he wants to see.
You're getting fingerprints all over the mirror, man. Aha! There's some Doug Hobart makeup right there. Yeah, Kathy, I think he undersold it a little bit. But it looks like one of those old screensavers from back in the day that just had all the like concentric lines just kind of going around. That was trippy now that I think about it. Forgot about that. Blast from the past. That's not acid. fight scene from that episode of Star Trek. Oh! Ooh, gruesome. Yeah, this is like turned into a full-on horror film at this point. This is perfect. I love this. Oh! Oh man, I didn't know we'd have a cameo from the monster from the Beach Girls and the Monster. I guess Doug Hobart's just pulling out all the makeups that he just, all the masks he had in the closet, I guess. These are just some very 60s looking monsters too. I love it. It's definitely like what kids played around with, the, you know, the little makeup kits. Oh. Oh. Oh man, what a bummer. Ah! Die, monsters, die! Ooh! Oh, nice. I love this. Yeah, how wild is this cat? See, this is how you know it's an exploitation film, because this is totally giving up on giving you any real information. Not that it really was at any point. Again, just the same old scare tactics, talking points. Oh! Oh! Yeah, no, he definitely took bath salts. What? Oh, this is so wild, man. Weird.
Mary Walker enters a world of childhood fantasy, the sadder world of Don Juan and Casanova. Women are everywhere, and he is the only male in their midst. But at the core of this dream is failure, for to love all women is to love no woman. Don Juan might have had his 1,003 women in Spain alone, but he could not prove his masculinity to himself and to the world. An immature, infantile dream, but one which LSD can bring to so many who possess such dreams beneath the threshold of consciousness. LSD has been hailed by such men as Timothy Leary, Alan Watts, and Aldous Huxley as a drug capable of extending man's perceptions into the mysteries of the universe and leading to the eventual establishment of a saner order of life. But medical men and medical research have demonstrated again and again that LSD can be dangerous with irretrievable consequences. Some who have used it have never returned from their trips and have had to be committed. Others have been permanently damaged. Still others have suffered repeated hallucinations months after taking LSD.
That's what we in the biz call a flashback.
Point out is that it draws within its grasp the unsuspecting, the naive, the unbalanced. Those who are already on the verge of psychic destruction. Tragically, it draws those least able to cope with it. Even LSD's most ardent champions have cautioned against promiscuous use. Even they have recommended that it be taken under supervised medical and scientific conditions with proper preparation, with attendance, and with post-LSD recovery equipment. To do otherwise is to court hellish disaster.
So what does this have to do? What does this dance have to do with anything? I'm a little confused. I love how you can tell that, like, the aspect ratio has changed a little. It's got a little smaller at the top and the bottom. Like, this is clearly footage from something else. So it's just, I mean, this may be courtesy of our nudie cutie producer. This may be courtesy Eli Jackson, because I don't know, there's no frame of reference. We didn't see her pop a sugar cube in her mouth or anything, so. Again, just another excuse to show a scantily clad woman, you know, writhing around. This is the 60s for you. I mean, you know, this movie did come out in '67. You would think that maybe they could get a little more psychedelic with the track, you know, get a little. Well, there we go. It's not bad. You know, I just want a little bit of, give me a little bit of production. You know, give me some Beatles style psychedelic rock. Give me some Beach Boys, Brian Wilson Smile psychedelic rock, damn it. I love how they're not even bothered trying to, like, tie this in or make this make sense in any way. It's just kind of like we're in the middle of the movie, so they, you know, that's where they put the padding. I guess that makes sense. You know, usually try to, like, put some oomph into your midpoint and not just the padding, but maybe in this case it's not a bad call. We'll see how the ending shakes out, but well, maybe it makes sense. I mean, she's having a good time. At least, again, this is an appropriate theater, an appropriate setting, unlike the woman who was tripping and in the middle of a bar started cutting her clothes off. At least there, though, we knew she was tripping. This is just a stage show. Yeah, I mean, it's just a striptease. I mean, you know, not really any kind of motivation behind it. That's how you know it's an exploitation film through and through. So We're somewhere different. Lightning, maybe? Are we about to get another striptease? Yeah, I think so. Just have these two striptease sequences we're gonna throw here in the middle. Hey, props to the filmmakers. Anytime you make a bold editing choice, I gotta give you kudos, whether it's successful or not, whether it makes sense or not. You know, hey, this movie's got to be at least an hour 15 minutes. Let's throw in at least 6 minutes of striptease footage in the middle. Nobody will notice. It doesn't have anything to do with LSD, but who cares? Psst. By now, the kids should be making out in their cars. They're not going to be paying attention. And that is what I love about the exploitation film mindset. Is it's like, we just have to get people to pay for the movie. Like, whether they pay attention or like it or whatever is none of our concern. We're just trying to get butts and seats and money in our pocket. It's not, we're just trying to titillate people. We've no altruistic intentions. It's all about our bottom line. We had some kind of weird jungle striptease before this. Now we've got some kind of Hawaiian striptease, tropical striptease going on now, I believe. I mean, again, it's just like this is just like a video from a stage show. Like, it's just spliced in here. Must have been from a local show in Florida. Wow, that is gonna take us to the, I was gonna say exciting middle of the Weird World of LSD, but the last like 7 minutes were just, I can't explain any of that. There was absolutely nothing happening, nothing relevant to the plot, no narration, even trying to make any reference to LSD. It was just two striptease sequences, which, hey, like, you know, like, you got to give the people what they want, but at the same time, like, come on. I mean, again, this is just exploitation for you. But I don't know. I mean, I really, really, really did love that horror sequence that we got there right in the middle of the movie. That was very drawn out and very over the top, and all the, you know, and the fog and the canted angles. But I love shit like that. The monster masks. I mean, you know, that's what all I wanted from this movie was to just have a scene where we just went batshit crazy with really bad special effects, and we checked that box. So whatever they do from now, as long as it's not just more, if the last 25 minutes of this movie are just striptease sequences, then I'm just gonna, I don't know, I'm gonna have to find some real acid in the 3 minutes of this break, and just try to find, you know, some way to get myself through it. But then, you know, then I'm in for another 12 hours of interesting adventures. No, but it is kind of wild how, you know, you can tell in the middle of the movie they just kind of have given up on scaring you really in any way. It's not about that anymore. It is just about let's give you the pure exploitation of it. Here's some striptease sequences, here's some rough stuff, here's some legitimate horror, you know, stylized horror. I mean, hey, I'm here for it. I'm here for all of it. It's you can definitely say it's been exciting. There's been no shortage of excitement, and it's kept my attention outside like the last 5 minutes. I was getting a little fed up with the strip teases. It's like, okay, you're not doing anything. You're just padding it out. We got through that hump. So as long as we moved on and we're not going back in that direction, I think yeah, all right. But so far, I mean, I'm definitely enjoying it, and it's you know, I mean, obviously this is low budget. They don't have the real effects to kind of really like do some crazy acid style trippy visuals, and it's not in color. That's the whole other thing about anything trippy. I mean, you can't, color is like the whole thing. You can't even take advantage of it. But that's kind of like the interesting thing about just acid in movies, in cinema, in like this, in basically in the late 60s was when it really started to kind of make an impression. In terms of like the media and film specifically. But I mean, like we said earlier in the show, it was being prescribed to people for psychiatric purposes in the 50s and in the early 60s. And it was actually marketed under the pharmaceutical name, what was it called? Let's see, Delicid. So, it was, you know, it was one of those things, like we said earlier, it was marketed to try to help people who were dealing with diseases or illnesses. It was thought of as, you know, this acid and other psychedelic drugs were looked at as, you know, maybe providing some kind of relief, not necessarily cures, but relief. Like even the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill Wilson, believed that acid could help with, you know, curing alcoholism. So, I mean, that was the thing. Like they, you know, throughout the 50s, certain people got to experiment with it, and you know, it was this thing where certain people started to advocate for it, right? But it was really in the testing phase for a lot of the 50s. And then, of course, you know, in the 60s is when it started to get more well-known, and in the early 60s, it started getting more of a reputation. And, of course, what we now know is that, and I'm not going to go too much into this, but as you know, it came out later that the government was basically involved in, the CIA specifically had a program entitled MK Ultra, which used psychoactive drugs to try to see if they could create like some kind of mind control or, you know, use it for warfare. They wanted to see kind of what the, you know, how they could weaponize psychedelics and psychoactive drugs. And LSD was essentially the centerpiece of this. And they had like legitimate kind of setups at like universities and laboratories where people were being tested, you know, not necessarily legitimately, but, you know, kind of, but they would just dose people apparently without even telling them and without their consent. They would just give people acid or mescaline, and this was, you know, the CIA this was them trying to see, could this be used on the Russians? Could this, you know, and they were also thinking that these other countries were maybe using these drugs for the same thing. So they were going to kind of extreme lengths to, you know, kind of see what could be done with this. And so, I mean, CIA agents, government employees, military personnel, just members of the general public would just be given LSD, just followed. Let's see what happens to these people. But there were also, you know, like I said earlier, legitimate programs, and there were notable subjects. And one of the most notable was Ken Kesey, who was the author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He was a participant through a VA hospital in Menlo Park. And he was given different psychoactive drugs, and that ended up serving as the inspiration for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And also Grateful Dead lyricist Robert Hunter, apparently through Stanford University. Stanford had some kind of association and was giving people psychoactive drugs, including LSD, and Robert Hunter apparently used it there. And so, you know, there are a lot of kind of interesting figures that in the 60s were kind of promoting the use of LSD and the fact that it could be positive. And, you know, even that documentary, in the bit we just saw, there were certain points where they were talking about Timothy Leary, who was a I always get psychologist and psychiatrist confused. I can never keep track of. But he was a see, where is it? I don't have it. Oh, wait, here it is. He was a psychologist. That's what he was. And he was the one who like popularized the term turn on, tune in, drop out, and set and setting. And, you know, you got to have the right dosage. And he was a proponent of it. And there were a lot of other really interesting figures, who were trying to promote LSD in the early 60s. But, you know, I think pretty much as soon as the government and the CIA's MK Ultra program, when they realized that essentially acid couldn't really be forced to, you couldn't really use it as a truth drug or a control drug. You couldn't control it like that. I think that was around the mid 60s, and that's when the tide kind of turned. And obviously at the same time, you have the hippie movement, you have Vietnam, you have, you know, the counterculture movement is just really starting to take hold. Obviously you'd have the civil rights movement going on, all this like kind of like change in America was like causing people to like, you know, explore these, what is this drug? What is this, you know? And obviously like what was going on in California and in the, you know, kind of area where a lot of these, where Grateful Dead was based out of, that was where acid kind of started taking on this mythical status, and it became this thing of, it wasn't even about making money from acid. People were just giving it out, and it was about sharing this thing with the people. But with all this social change going on, you had a counter reaction, which was all of this is degrading our moral decency as a nation, and you know, we've got to fight back against this, and we've got to fight back against these drugs. And so that was like the first thing was, okay, we got to outlaw drugs, right? So LSD was like public enemy number one. And by 1966, it was outlawed in California. And 67 was when all the scare films came out. So you have, and then most of these are shorts, and they are educational films, but you have LSD 25, LSD Insight or Insanity, Beyond LSD, LSD Trip or Trap, The Mind Benders, LSD and the Hallucinogens, The Maze, Etched in Acid. I mean, these all those were in 1967, including tonight's film. So that was like obviously the watershed. And then 68 was when it was made completely illegal in the United States and made a Schedule 1 drug. But 68, you also, you know, you still had movies that were trying to use it as a plot device. And even the same year as tonight's film, 1967, you had at least some interesting narrative films that used acid. We're trying to use acid in a positive light. And one very related to this program would, of course, be the LSD film directed by favorite of this show, Mr. Roger Corman, The Trip, from 1967. If you haven't seen The Trip, we're about to see a trailer for it here at the break. But it is a wild movie, and Roger Corman actually took LSD before he made the film because he wanted to actually know what it was like. And so he had a positive experience, and he made the film. You know, there was some kind of like, keep using the phrase bummer. There were some bummer moments, but overall he wanted it to have kind of a positive outlook. But again, Hollywood overall, their view of acid, at least from the studio perspective, was, well, this is still a drug and this is still negative. So the studio bosses at American International Pictures, who distributed The Trip, changed the ending to make it a negative ending and framed the whole advertising campaign as like, you know, the dangers of LSD, a lovely sort of death, LSD. So like, that's the thing, is that it was, you know, and that's the thing, like Hollywood figures, like old Hollywood figures, were kind of mingling with this younger, hippie crowd. This was before the Manson stuff happened. So there was this like convergence of old and new Hollywood. So people from old Hollywood were like trying to be hip and taking these drugs. And that's how you get the film that we're going to see our second trailer in our break, which is after, I think it probably came out after it was made illegal. So, and it seems you'll be able to tell by the trailer, this film already missed the boat. I'm trying to give you like a relevant kind of, just kind of like any kind of real insight on youth culture and acid at the time. And that would be the 1968 film Skidoo, which was a studio film directed by Otto Preminger, who was one of the like kind of you know, he was an auteur for sure. I mean, he had a very distinct style. It was one of those tyrannical German directors. And Skidoo was his acid film, but it's you know, filled with old television stars, starring Jackie Gleason. You know, nothing against Jackie Gleason, but this is 1968, and you're making a movie about acid. As it's not totally about acid, but acid kind of ends up taking center stage, and Jackie Gleason's character takes acid and has an acid trip. And there's all these other like old stars in it, and 4 of them are Batman villains from the TV show. You got Cesar Romero, Frank Gorshin, and Burgess Meredith. Penguin, Riddler, and Joker all in this movie. And then Otto Preminger himself, who I believe is in this trailer, and I guess he's in the movie too, he played Mr. Freeze in Batman. So it's kind of this weird convergence of that campy late 60s style with the acid youth counterculture. But by 1968, you know, acid was being outlawed. If the movie had came out maybe 2 or 3 years before, they'd been on it. They kind of missed the boat, and you get this really cheesy movie. The fun thing about this trailer, though, before we get into it, is that it's got some snippets of the song that is, it's the end credits song, but it's the credits as sung by the musician Harry Nilsson, who was a great kind of, he has some psychedelic stuff, but also some very kind of yacht rock, soft rock kind of songs, and just, you know, he was a favorite of the Beatles, but he sings the credits at the end of the movie. And down to the best boy and the copyright notice he sings. So it's you'll get to hear some snippets of that song, but you'll see it's very cheesy. It's a very cheesy trailer for a very cheesy movie. And of course, before we see it, I have to mention that you know that it's bad when one of the biggest proponents of LSD at the time, Dr. Timothy Leary, is featured in this trailer singing praises on this movie, but it feels like he's selling out hard. It doesn't, something about it just feels kind of like he's, you know, like acid's being made illegal, and here's Timothy Leary, you know, singing praises on this cheesy movie. So, I mean, and he was kind of blamed for some of the backlash against acid because of how he was promoting it. I mean, he wanted people to take it, but it was, you know how it is when somebody's just like, oh, you gotta listen to this podcast, you gotta watch this movie, you gotta do this thing. And you're just like, all right, give it a rest. And then you don't want to because that person annoyed you about it. So that's how it seems like Timothy Leary was with acid. So him appearing in this trailer, I think, tells you that it's just kind of, they missed the boat with Skidoo. But the trip, you know, the boat trailers are fun, but you'll see the trip. I think Roger was a little bit more on the right wavelength. And, you know, Skidoo missed the boat. But another famous Hollywood star also took acid for Skidoo. I'll tell you who that was after the break. We're going to have these trailers for the trip and Skidoo. And when we come back, we'll get into the exciting conclusion of the weird world of LSDs. Stick around. We'll be right back.
I'm Peter Fonda. We've just finished making a movie dealing with the most talked about subject of the day, LSD. I honestly believe it will be today's most talked about motion picture.
The name of the picture is The Trip.
Here goes.
It gives off an orange cloud of light that just blows right out over the city.
Beauty you cannot believe inundates you.
Your world, the people world, is fragmented,
distorted. Passion is a rainbow of ecstasy.
The messengers of death pursue,
terrify you.
I'm gonna die, man. Oh no.
Oh, I don't want to die.
If that happens to you again, you go ahead and go with it. Just go ahead and die. Whatever happens.
wildest of pleasures possess you.
It will blow your mind.
Funny movie the other night.
It is the gassiest, grooviest, swingingest, trippiest movie you've ever seen.
It's Otto Preminger's Psychedelic Trip.
The Living End.
It's a movie that kids will like.
A while laughing.
They turn on the older generation, get them high. Can you imagine Groucho Marx being God?
Skidoo, skidoo. The only thing that matters is with who you do. Skidoo, skidoo. The only thing that matters is with who. Skidoo, I doodly-doo. I do believe it really is the thing to do. Skidoo, skidoo. Between the 1 and 3, there is a 2.
I think this movie is going to turn on the country.
Jackie Gleason was Tony Banks, Carol Channing Flo.
It's not odorless, colorless, and tasteless. As a matter of fact, it's Technicolor.
Frankie Avalon and Jeep, Fred Clark, a tower guard.
I laugh my head off. So if you see a man walking around without his head, that's me.
Michael Constantine Leach, Frank Gorshin, the man.
The wildest trip anybody can ever take.
John Philip Lawstash, Peter Lawford, the senator.
Peter Lawford?
A real swinger.
Burgess Meredith, the warden.
Far out.
George Raft, the skipper. Cesar Romero was head chief.
Every young person in the country should turn on Mom and Dad by taking to this movie.
Mickey Rooney, Blue Chips Packard.
It's a gas.
Groucho Marx played God in the Otto Preminger film, skadoodly-doo-doo-doo.
Oh, and please, keep off the grass.
And introducing Austin Pendleton as Fred, Alexandra Hay as Darlene, and Luna as God's mistress. Well, you know what I mean.
Anybody that don't like that, Daddy, don't like chicken on Sunday.
It'll make you love better. It'll make you feel better. And it's even legal.
Man wasn't meant to fly. He wasn't meant to go up in the sky.
Man wasn't meant for such things.
If God wanted man to fly, we'd have wings.
And we are back. So those were the trailers for The Trip and Skidoo, two late 60s LSD related films. Again, I mean, Skidoo, it's fun. It's campy. I believe you can find it on YouTube in full. It's exactly legally on YouTube, but it is there if you want to go, if you're curious and you haven't seen it. I checked it out a few years ago because, I mean, again, all those names, I mean, by that point they're kind of like washed up TV stars, but it's still enough like well-known names that you're like, well, I gotta see what this is about. And it's it's just kind of silly and not really like, it's just Otto Preminger getting a bunch of stars and just kind of a half-baked story, him trying to do his counterculture thing, and it's not really there. But, you know, hey, apparently that movie was responsible for Groucho Marx taking acid. So, which, if you didn't know, that was the other star who apparently, you never would have thought would have taken acid, but apparently Groucho Marx did take acid. I guess before that, I don't know if it was before that film or after that film. I believe it was before. And you know, I mean, obviously older Groucho is kind of a interesting character, but and apparently his performance in that film is not great, but it's you know, of all people to ingest LSD, Groucho Marx is certainly probably the funniest. But yeah, that's and the trip. I mean, I've seen it like once. I didn't really pay attention. I think I kind of stopped paying attention. It might have been before I really understood LSD. Let's put it that way. So I just don't think I was really tuned in on the right wavelength. But Roger Corman had taken acid, so he knew what was up. So if you haven't seen The Trip, that's another one. Certainly more trying to take a more authentic approach than tonight's film, because tonight's film's not interested in authenticity. It's about getting rid of these nudie cutie clips that were sitting on the shelves, these strip teases, and and we got some interesting stuff in the last half, or in the last third, but we'll see how they can close this thing out. We'll see how this trip, usually the way a trip works is you come up, you peak, and then you kind of have this very long tread down, and so it's not like you have this like final climactic thing, and it's not like a movie. It's just kind of all downhill after the peak. So hopefully the movie isn't like a real LSD trip and some excitement at the end, but we'll see what happens. So on that note, without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into the exciting conclusion of The Weird World of LSD right now.
Often in a society of sexual repression, sex and violence become intertwined and identified with each other. Violence, whether in war, professional football, boxing, or in any form of sadism, becomes substitutes for sex.
Sadism.
George Putnam, under the influence of LSD, is therefore not difficult to understand. It is a world of intoxicating...
All right, so now we're just getting random drag racing, but they're covering all their bases. Makes sense. They've got their horror movie crowd. They've gotten their striptease crowd. Now they're getting the racing crowd. It's great. I think we have a winner.
A routine encounter between friends can turn into an unusual experience, with a nightmare ending when LSD is involved. Easily manufactured and easily obtainable in certain...
It's getting really choppy here then. It's okay, we don't need to know what they're talking about. It's not that important. Acid? No way, man. Seems like
he drives off to what has always been his first love.
What? I'm interested to know what his first love is. He You definitely can tell we're in Florida. Florida. Oh, we got some slow-mo. Nope. Not more. Oh, shit. Just going for a dip in the river, huh?
He attempts to become part of the trees in his quest for oneness with all nature.
Quest for oneness. Now we're getting a little more authentic, I think.
He runs with childhood abandon through the forest of his innocent youth as LSD plus nature create a powerful impact.
LSD plus nature equals powerful impact.
The river becomes a torrent, a life force he feels running through him.
Bro, don't get in the river. It's a lake, it's alright. If it's the ocean, maybe even, but not a river. Gotta make sure he goes to a safe part of the river. Don't want the actor to get washed away.
Feels bird-like himself. It is exhilarating. It is thrilling.
Well, this is good. This is better. I think they're getting to the bottom of it finally.
But under LSD, he loses his identity, becomes one with Mother Earth and allows it to devour him. Before long, the boyhood dream of woods and lazy rivers becomes a nightmare of self-abasement and danger.
This is the trippiest it's felt so far. Oh, Jesus. He's eating dirt and leaves. Oh my God.
Different people react in different ways to LSD. And although experts have said that sexual activity is subdued by LSD, others have claimed intensification of satisfaction.
Good luck if you can even focus on it. What do you think she's gonna do? You think she's gonna cut her clothes off, or is he gonna cut his clothes off? Maybe he's gonna circle back around, like all good movies do.
Here, Larry Markham and Joyce Kelly are out on a date. We recognize Larry as a pusher, too smart to try LSD himself, and with enough moral integrity not to offer it to those he feels some attachment.
Do we recognize all that? How much can I get for $2? Try some? Gimme. She's just gonna pick it out of your pocket.
But Joyce Kelly's curiosity and desire for experiment are uncontrollable. Spurned in her efforts with Larry, she turns to an old friend she dated before meeting Larry.
Uncontrollable. I do love how some of the narrative dialogue is so still. An old friend before she started dating.
Protected. A feeling of well-being embraces her. Soon, an intense urge becomes a compulsion.
I don't think it works that fast. Where even are they right now? Just pulling off on the side of the road, I guess, to do some necking. You can tell it's Florida because of the palm trees and the sand. Oh, back at the pool. All right, let's just keep walking around the edge and try not to fall in. Oh, no, they're going for it. He's going for it. He's gonna keep running around the edge till somebody inevitably slips and falls. As a lifeguard, I really hate seeing people run around the sides of pools, so I'm really glad that they moved away from there. This movie is just so up and down, you know? Hot and cold. Back to the pool. Not gonna turn out good. Oh. Just waiting for the kicker. Something's gonna happen. Or they'll just move on to a new story. It's very likely. Oh shit. Oh. What is this, her old boyfriend? Finally. Hey. It's just like the fiance earlier. Oh, now we should leave now after you've done a whole striptease for the
But the real world will not vanish.
Thanks for that, narrator. Yeah, Kathy. I think he's tracking her by scent. I think that's what it is. Any minute now, he's gonna come Kramering through this door. You gotta appreciate the balls on these filmmakers to just extend it as long as you can go. 10 minutes of foreplay. Back to the is it night all of a sudden? Suddenly it was night. I mean, like they said earlier, when you take acid, you lose all track of time. It's actually true. But not in the way that you think that. Taking him a while. Oh, we picked up tempo. Uh-oh. Oh, no. For a second, I thought it was a switchblade. It's just a pocket knife.
And inevitably, this menacing reality closes in on the unsuspecting lovers.
Is he gonna creep in or is he gonna bust in? Yep. Oh shit. Oh man, dude, you are screwed. Are they inside or outside? I can't even tell. Guess they're outside. There's plants. This is a wild set. And the lighting is good. They're doing a pretty good job with this. Wish I could play an instrument. I'm trying. I am trying. I'm starting to learn piano. I've something that I attempted at an early age. It didn't get very far. But I've always been fascinated. I've always wanted to have that skill. But just now trying dipping my toes in it. So wish me luck. Dead end. Oh no. Oh, come on, he dropped the knife. Yeah, just pull his hair. That'll do it. Apparently not. I guess it won't. Brutal. Run, run. What, there's no windows in that door? No glass in those rings? I killed him. We're good now. We're good. It's all good.
While under the influence of LSD, a senseless murder has been committed. Yet the murderer shows no compassion, and fear never overcomes him. He has convinced himself that he will escape and never be caught. He has the power to change his physical being and to take on the form of someone completely new. And this he does. He is now someone completely different in another time and place. Mind has now taken complete control over body.
Looks like he's just got caught. I'm gonna eat this tomato, man. I'm gonna eat this tomato. Oh Oh shit. I think so, Kathy. I believe this is the same. They're just going back to him again. And this whole bit of the movie. Yeah, see, he's just thirsty. He's just got cotton mouth. Oh, water in the empty bathtub. The water in that bathtub. What's the wow. I don't even know what that metaphor was. That was the weird world of LSD, and what a weird world it was. My goodness, that ending was... I'm not quite sure. You know, they keep showing the clips of the rushing water and the water glass and him, you know, and then he's in a bathtub, presumably dead. I don't know. They're showing... this movie, I have questions because it's almost like, because of the different narrators, it's like, did it start as one movie that didn't get finished, and then another producer took it over, added more footage, put different narration over that footage? That's how we got tonight's movie. That's my only guess. I like, that would make sense to me. It's not totally unconventional in the world of regional filmmaking, regional independent filmmaking. So it's very plausible. And that justifies why you would have two narrators, because you just had two different like productions essentially fused together to make one movie. I feel like it was 3 productions. Oh, what was that? My light right at the end. Whoa, far out. The acid, the vibes. Wasn't liking it. But yeah, I mean, it definitely, the movie kind of meandered off at the end. I feel like they definitely ran out of movie, and they were just kind of recycling some things and drawing things out. And like, I think within the first third, we probably had 4 different vignettes. And then within the next third, there were maybe like 3 and some strip teases. You could maybe count both strip teases as one vignette. And then in the last portion, I mean, it just, yeah, not really a lot new going on. No new information from the narrator. Narrator was barely involved. So the ending, you know, I would have liked a little bit more. I mean, again, they put the juiciest, the most horror movie-esque bit, sequence in the middle of the movie. They should have just saved that bit for the end. Because, yeah, like Kathy pointed out, it was kind of confusing how, like, they're showing this guy killing people in the middle of the movie, and then at the end they show him, and he's in the bathtub, and, well, I don't know, it just makes sense. Yeah, and like Kathy said, yeah, it is like one of those school projects where everybody's done a different piece, and they're just taking the pieces and they're fusing them together. Like, I would imagine the strip teases came from Eli Jackson. I would say the more horror type sequences came from Doug Hobart, and maybe G.B. Roberts pulled it all together. That's all a guess, because there's literally no information about this movie. So, you know, even you won't even find on IMDb that it was made in Florida. Like, I had to put together that, oh, well, it was produced, one of the producers was Doug Hobart. He was based out of Florida. And so, then when you watch the movie, you can tell, oh, we're definitely in some kind of tropical location. All right, it's probably Florida. So, there's definitely some interesting facts to be gathered from this movie that aren't on the IMDb page. I don't even think there's a Wikipedia page for this movie. Probably why I didn't know about it until recently. Unfortunately, that's says a lot about me and how much I rely on Wikipedia. But no, I really enjoyed it. It was good to get get just something really abstract, and that wasn't so bogged down in plot. Like even like a Reefer Madness kind of gets so bogged down in plot. You have to appreciate the episodic nature of this, even though it did trail off at the end. I mean, at least it was trying to serve a, like, it wasn't trying to tell you a story like most movies. It was trying to serve a different purpose, which was exploitation, which is just, it's just interesting to me. I don't know, exploitation. It's just funny when, because you get so many people that are like, oh, I made this movie out of passion because I love the form, and you get any kind of bullshit answer. You got a lot of the people that are just, I'm in it for the money. This is all motivated by profit. I mean, at least they know how to have fun with it. So yeah, I had fun with this one tonight. I hope everybody else did too. It's not every day that we get to deliberate on the virtues and the pitfalls of LSD, but we got to do that this evening. The one other thing I didn't mention is that, like, the celebration of Bicycle Day didn't actually become a thing until 1985. It was a college professor out of Illinois who kind of came up with the idea of the celebration at his home. And then it kind of, through his students, the idea got spread on the internet. And that's how the idea of Bicycle Day got popularized. And it was Thomas B. Roberts was the professor's name. He originally planned to celebrate it on April 16th when the discoverer Hoffman first experienced effects, but it fell on a weekday. And so he was like, well, that's not an appropriate time to celebrate an acid holiday. I got to wait till Friday, which happened to also be the day that Hoffman first ingested the drug deliberately. So it worked out. And to our benefit tonight, this Friday night, we got to enjoy a LSD scare film / exploitation film / horror film / I guess softcore film, if you will. I mean, it was, it was all over the place, but it was fun. So that was the Weird World of LSD. And, it's you gotta love any movie from the 60s we get on the show. And guess what? We're not straying too far from that next week. We will have a movie from the early 60s. This one is actually an Italian production. We're getting international next Friday. We're going to be watching The Blancheville Monster, aka Horror. And this is an Italian production, also kind of loosely based on the stories of Edgar Allan Poe. It's a gothic horror film. So it should be fun. A different kind of trip from tonight, but tonight, yeah. Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, thank you for coming along on this journey with us, and thank you all of our wonderful, beautiful audience for partaking this evening on this experience into the weird world of LSD. It's been a lot of fun, as always. We we see what the world of public domain has to offer, and in this case, it was the world of LSD. So, gotta appreciate the gifts that nature provides. We certainly did this evening, and appreciate everybody watching. And of course, we'll be, this was episode 8 of season 9. We are 2 episodes from closing it out. And We'll have a week off, and then we'll be starting season 10, and we'll be closing in on 100 episodes of the Scream Stream. So we're, it's been around the block for a while, and we're definitely showing our age, but I think we're aging gracefully. And so we're getting ready to close the season out. So we'll have the Blancheville Monster next Friday, and of course next Wednesday, another exciting episode of Tales of Tomorrow. Thoroughly enjoying that early sci-fi anthology, and of course, just look out on Monday for another spine-tingling tale, a public domain horror story that we'll have for you guys. All the stuff's over on our YouTube page at Scream Stream Live. Be sure to like and subscribe. Check out all of our past videos. We've got tons of different things for you to enjoy over there. Of course, if you want to follow the show on the socials, you can find the show over on X and Instagram and TikTok at Scream Stream Show. Also on Twitch at Scream Stream Show. If you are over on Twitch and you like checking out the live streams over there, give us a follow over on Twitch as well. And of course, if you want to follow me or Evan Sink, who not here this evening, but another worthy follow, you can find us both over on X. You can find me over on X at Spakenstein, and Evan Sink is on X and Instagram at Caligari Curse. Again, thanks so much everybody for watching tonight. Kathy in the chat, nice fan in the chat. This was far out. This was definitely it was a pretty groovy night. So happy to be celebrating Bicycle Day in this way. It was a good one. So and of course tomorrow's 420, which is so funny those days fall back to back, but what are you gonna do? You gotta let the druggies have their moment, right? So hey, if you didn't get enough of the Bicycle Day celebrations today, you plenty of opportunity to celebrate 420 tomorrow. We may, for our Saturday Night Shockers, run some marijuana scare films. We did last year. I think we did. I think I called it the Doobie Doobie double feature, and we did. I ran Reefer Madness, and this title's always a tongue twister. She shoulda said no. That word shoulda gets me. So tomorrow there are plenty of marijuana propaganda films out there, so I'll maybe try to find some other ones that are in the public domain, because I believe a few are. Maybe play marijuana again. But be on the lookout for that. And so enjoy your weekend, and until next time, sweet screams, everybody.